Right now, as you watch this, Iran is sitting at a negotiating table, alone, bruised, and bleeding economically, passing proposals through Pakistani middlemen to a U.S. president who just publicly said he's not satisfied with what Tehran is offering. Trump's exact words today, May 1st, Iran wants to make a deal. I'm not satisfied with it. I don't know if we're going to get to a deal. He added, Iran wants to make a deal because they have no military left. Read that again. The President of the United States just told the entire world that Iran's military is essentially finished, and he said it calmly, almost casually, like a man who holds all the cards and knows it. This is not how Iran's story was supposed to end. This was supposed to be the regime that outlasted everyone. The regime that survived 40 years of sanctions, 6 American presidents, 2 wars, and 3 assassination attempts on its leadership. The regime whose supreme leader looked into the camera every year and said, America cannot do a damn thing. So what happened? How did one of the most paranoid, strategically sophisticated regimes on Earth end up sending desperate proposals through a Pakistani general, begging for a deal that the other side keeps rejecting? The answer is both simpler and more brutal than most people realize. Iran built its entire survival strategy on one assumption, that when the real war came, its friends would show up. They didn't. And now Iran is discovering in real time what it means to be truly, completely, geopolitically alone. Start with where things actually stand today, because the mainstream headlines are missing the full picture. On April 8, 2026, the US and Iran agreed to a 2-week ceasefire mediated by Pakistan. Since its declaration, the ceasefire has been violated by both sides. Iran's closure of the strait and America's naval blockade of Iranian ports. Neither has removed their blockades. On paper, this is a ceasefire. In practice, it is economic strangulation with a temporary pause on the explosions. The New York Times estimates that 40% of Iran's pre-war drone arsenal and some 60% of its missile launcher capabilities are still intact, but that military hardware is meaningless if Iran cannot afford the fuel to run its economy, the food to feed its people, or the diplomatic cover to survive on the world stage. And right now, it has none of those things. The most damning detail in today's news cycle is this: Iran's civilian leaders, including Chief Negotiator Ghalibaf and Foreign Minister Araghchi, favored continuing talks to reach a deal. But IRGC Commander General Vahidi and his deputies refused to offer concessions and opposed negotiations as long as the naval blockade continues. Iran cannot even agree with itself on whether to negotiate. The government is fractured in full view of the world. The diplomats want a deal, the generals want a fight, and the supreme leader sits somewhere in between, unable to impose a consensus. The U.S. seizure of an Iranian cargo ship in the Arabian Sea deepened the internal rift, with IRGC commanders accusing Iran's negotiators of being weak. A country at war with itself cannot win a war with America, and everyone watching this knows it. While the generals argue in Tehran, the numbers tell a story that no amount of bravado can hide. The IMF estimates Iran's economy will shrink by 6.1% in 2026, with 68.9% inflation. The currency has fallen to around 1.32 million rial per US dollar. The central bank has now issued a 10 million rial note, the largest denomination in Iranian history, just 1 month after printing a 5 million rial note. Think about what that tells you about the velocity of this collapse. As of April 29th, the free market dollar rate climbed above 181,000 tamans, gaining more than 23,000 tamans in just 2 days. The government spokesperson confirmed total war-related damage at approximately $270 billion, a staggering figure for an economy already on life support before the first bomb fell. U.S. gas prices have hit $4.39 per gallon, their highest since July 2022, up 33 cents in just 1 week. That tells you the strait remains effectively sealed. The world is paying Iran's price, but Iran is paying an even higher one. A 61% majority of Americans now say it was a mistake to use military force against Iran. But here's the cruel irony. American public opinion hurts Trump politically, but it doesn't rescue Iran economically. The blockade stays. The rial keeps falling. The food keeps getting more expensive. Trump's preferred strategy right now, according to sources familiar with the talks, is maximum economic pain, and he is winning that battle by every measurable metric. This is the part the world is not watching closely enough, because it may be the most consequential development happening inside Iran right now. The Islamic Republic today lacks a decisive supreme leader who can impose consensus on the system. The country appears to be ruled through some type of coalition. New supreme leader Mojtaba Khamenei, son of the assassinated Ali Khamenei, has the title, but not yet the unquestioned authority his father wielded for 35 years. In that power vacuum, two factions are pulling in opposite directions. The pragmatists, Foreign Minister Araghchi, Speaker Ghalibaf, know the math. They know the blockade is working. They know the economy cannot survive another active phase of war. They want to deal now, cut losses, and live to fight another decade. The IRGC generals see every concession as a surrender, every negotiation as weakness. They watch the US kill Khamenei Sr., devastate the nuclear program, cripple the missile arsenal, and their response is to dig in harder. These are men whose entire identity, whose entire power base is built on resistance. A deal that limits Iran's nuclear program, restricts its missiles, and dismantles its proxy networks doesn't just cost them strategically, it costs them existentially. Iran's delegation at the Islamabad talks placed photographs and bloodied belongings of schoolchildren killed in a US missile strike on a row of empty seats on their plane flying to negotiations. A haunting image of a government simultaneously grieving and negotiating, furious and desperate, proud and cornered. This is what a regime in genuine crisis looks like from the inside. China and Russia, the friends who never came. Now here is what makes Iran's situation uniquely, almost historically tragic. Russia and China have condemned the US-Israeli attack, but stopped short of offering military support. Neither has indicated a willingness to intervene militarily. Russia's Putin met with Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi this week in St. Petersburg. More condolences, more expressions of solidarity, more carefully worded diplomatic phrases that mean exactly nothing on the battlefield or at the negotiating table. Beijing's priority is surviving Trump's presidency without a major trade war. Even if the Iranian regime does not survive, its successor will have no choice but to engage with China. It will always be far easier for Beijing to find a different supplier than for Iran to find new buyers. China is essentially telling Iran, "You need us more than we need you. So we'll make statements, send envoys, and wait to see who's running Tehran in 6 months." That's not an alliance. That's a landlord-tenant relationship, and Iran is behind on rent. A record number of countries voted against Iran in the UN, and Russia and China did not use their veto power to support Iran. The clearest possible signal that the grand axis of anti-American solidarity was always more slogan than strategy. Where this goes, and why it matters for everyone watching. So where does this end? Iran's nuclear capabilities remain the central sticking point. Trump demands guaranteed limits on the program. Tehran insists it has the right to enrich uranium for peaceful purposes. It is a critical red line for both sides, leaving things at an impasse. Trump said he was not satisfied with Iran's latest proposal, casting doubt on whether Iranian officials will ever get there on a deal. Axios has reported that U.S. Central Command has prepared plans for a short and powerful new wave of strikes, a sword hanging over every hour of these stalled negotiations. Brookings analysts warn that within days, if the two parties cannot get to the negotiating table, we may be back to an active military phase of the war. The clock is ticking in multiple directions simultaneously. For Iran, economically. For Trump, politically, under the 60-day war powers deadline. For the global economy, with Brent crude still hovering above $108 a barrel and gas prices hitting American wallets harder every week. But here is the deepest truth beneath all of this. Iran built a 47-year empire of influence on the belief that it was too dangerous to fully confront. That belief has now been tested and broken. The nuclear sites are rubble, the proxy network is fractured, the supreme leader is gone, the economy is in freefall, and the two great powers that were supposed to stand beside Tehran are standing back, watching, calculating their own advantage. Iran begged for help. The world sent statements. Statements don't stop blockades. Statements don't rebuild nuclear sites. Statements don't feed a population where a kilogram of lamb now costs 1.9 million tomans. And statements don't fill the extraordinary silence on the other end of the line when a desperate regime calls its most powerful friends and waits, and waits, and waits. What do you think? Can Iran find a face-saving deal before the next wave of strikes? Or is this the moment the Islamic Republic finally breaks? Leave your thoughts in the comments.